Hello and welcome to another amazing deck tech video. Today I'm proud to show off one of my favourite decks that I've ever built, Winota, Joiner of Forces. This is the strongest EDH deck that I currently own, which is amazing I know because it's in Boros colours. Everyone thinks Boros sucks in EDH, but this is the deck to prove everyone wrong. This deck is so goddamn strong, I love it. When Winota's artwork was first revealed, I was like, right, that art's awesome. However bad this commander is, I'm building it. And I was so happy when it turned out to not only be my favourite colour combination, but also such a powerful card. And I got to work building it straight away, and it's so strong. I love it, I think you'll love it too. So Winota is 4 mana in Boros colours for a 4/4 human warrior. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, you look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature from among them onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn, and you put the rest of the cards on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now I want to point out, this counts for each non-human you're attacking with. So if you attack with say like 3 or 4 non-humans, you don't just get 1 trigger, you get 4 triggers. So you just absolutely dump humans onto the battlefield. This is a fast and extremely aggressive combat-based Boros deck. This is like the Boros combat archetype just taken up to the absolute limit. What you want to do is, you want to get out loads of non-human creatures, then play Winota, then attack with those non-human creatures, and use Winota's trigger to bring in loads of powerful humans to attack quickly and aggressively. So that's what the deck does. It's an incredibly aggressive and powerful deck, and it's a lot of fun to play. So now that the basics are covered, let's go through the deck itself. So the first thing you want to be doing, and the main thing you want to look for in your starting hand with this deck, is ways to create multiple non-human creatures. So Secure the Wastes and Tempt with Vengeance are excellent ways to create loads of non-human creatures for efficient mana. Secure the Wastes is white and X to create X 1/1 white warriors. They're not human warriors, technically, they're just warriors, so they will trigger Winota's ability. This is especially great for being an instant. You just flash in like 4 or 5 humans, and then play Winota on your turn, and swing in with them and start triggering her. A lot of the tokens in this deck, you'd think they'd be humans, because it says like warriors or soldiers, but for gameplay purposes they're technically not. So you'll trigger Winota very easily with them. Tempt with Vengeance is similar. It's X and a red. You create X 1/1 red elementals with haste, and then each opponent may create X 1/1 red elementals with haste. For each player who does, you create another X 1/1 red elementals. No opponent in their right mind is going to accept that offer, so you're very rarely going to be creating more than X. But even X is like 5 or 6, they can attack straight away. It's deadly. It's absolutely deadly. So this is one of the strongest cards in the deck. Martial Coup does something similar. It's double white and X. Create X 1/1 white soldiers. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So it's a little bit less efficient than Tempt with Vengeance or Secure the Wastes, but it's good if you need a board wipe if it goes into like late game. Now Goblin Instigator, Dragon Fodder, Krenko's Command, Raise the Alarm, Holding Outburst, and Midnight Haunting are all good ways to just create 2 or 3 tokens for efficient mana. You just drop these on like turn 2 or 3, and then you've got a bunch of creatures that are ready to attack when Winota comes out turn 4. It might not seem like a lot, just bringing out like 2 1/1s, but 2 triggers off Winota can get you 2 huge creatures that can really advance your board state, so these are very efficient. Hanged Executioner is something similar. It's 3 mana for 2 1/1 spirits, except that you can also exile Hanged Executioner later on to exile one of your opponent's creatures if you need to do that. Legion Warboss and Goblin Rabblemaster. 3 mana goblins that each create 1 goblin per turn. This really adds up. If you're not swinging in with Goblin Rabblemaster or Legion Warboss, you can just consistently get another Winota trigger each turn with these hasty goblins. So I really want to stress what you absolutely want to be doing in the early game is making as many non-human creatures as you possibly can, because that's the more Winota triggers the better. Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. Her first 0 and her -2 abilities are basically irrelevant in this deck, but her second 0 ability is create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They gain haste. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Like Goblin Rebel Master and whatever the one's called, Legion Warboss, this is just a good way to consistently create tokens to trigger Winota every turn. This is a really nice Planeswalker. Assemble the Legion does something similar. So it's 5 mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a muster counter on Assemble the Legion. Then create a 1/1 red and white soldier with haste for each muster counter on it. Again, this is not technically a human soldier, so they will trigger Winota. This is a bit slow. If you're going to make cuts to the deck to start making it even more powerful, this might be one of the first places you start, but sometimes your opponents will be able to answer Winota often enough that the game goes on a bit longer. When this happens, Assemble the Legion can be really useful, because it just gradually makes more and more tokens if your opponent doesn't have a way to remove it. So this isn't so great if you are able to go like fast and aggressive with it, but if your opponent is able to slow you down, this can reward you for letting the game take longer. So this is still pretty good. Now, you've got your non-human creature tokens, you put Winota down, you attack, time for an ability to trigger. You want to be cheating out loads and loads of humans. So here are some of the humans you can be cheating out. Loyal Apprentice, 2 mana for a 2/1 with haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, create a 1/1 Thopter with flying. That token gains haste until end of turn. A lot of the humans in this deck create non-human tokens. So you cheat them out with Winota, and then you get even more non-human tokens to trigger Winota later on. So if you like swing in with say 2 1/1 goblins and they get blocked and killed, it's okay, because a lot of the time you'll be cheating out humans that make more tokens. So, you'll be able to trigger Winota again next turn. Loyal Apprentice is also a good card to play in the early game, even if you can't cheat it out, because when you bring a Winota, it brings in a hasty token, which will let you trigger it. So you can cheat this out, or you can play it in the early game manually. Either way, it's a good choice. Thalia, Heretic Cathar. 3/2 first strike, creatures and non-basic lands your opponents control need to be tapped. This is really good for slowing down your opponents and making sure that they can't bring in creatures to block yours. Mirror Entity. 3 mana for a Changeling. It has X until end of turn. Creatures you control have base power and toughness XX and gain all creature types. Since you're going to be swinging with loads of creatures, you're often going to have like at least just easily like upwards of 10 creatures on board. You can use this to just pump up all your creatures and make it 1/1 swinging for huge amounts of damage. And it is technically a human as well, with it being a Changeling, which means that this will be able to be cheated out by Winota. Fiend Hunter, Banisher Priest, and Palace Jailer are all humans that can be cheated in with Winota to remove your opponent's blockers. Now, to be honest, I have just added Banisher Priest to this deck. It was originally Anax hardened in the Forge before, while filming this video, I realised it wasn't a human. So that's kind of a hasty addition. So it's up to you how many of these Banisher Priest effects you want to run. But I think they're pretty good for removing your opponent's blockers. Piran Kiran Nalar, when it comes in, you create 2 1/1 Thopters, which obviously you can attack with to trigger Winota later on. And you can tap 3 mana and sacrifice an artifact to deal 2 damage to any target, which is quite useful for taking out utility creatures and blockers if it goes into the late game. Odric, Master's Taxation. 3/4 with first strike. Whenever Odric and at least 3 other creatures attack, you choose which creatures block this combat and how those creatures block. Generally, you're just going to say that your opponent's creatures don't block at all. So, you can just get in for huge amounts of damage without being stopped. It's worth remembering though, that when you first cheat in Odric with Winota, he's already tapped and attacking, so his ability won't trigger the first time. But then any subsequent times you attack with him, his ability will trigger. So just remember, it doesn't trigger when you first cheat him in, but it will do later on. Golnak Commander. Now this is an absolute sleeper hit. Like, you wouldn't think this would be very strong, but it's one of the strongest cards in the deck. 4 mana for a 2/2 human cleric soldier. Whenever another creature ETBs under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So bear in mind, like, on a given combat, if you have like, say, 4 Winota triggers, with all the humans you have that bring in other tokens, you could easily get like 9 or 10 triggers off Gold Knight Commander, because you're bringing in loads of tokens. And then that is giving all of your creatures that are attacking +9, +9, +10, +10. It gets so crazy so fast. Like, this is a really surprisingly strong card in this deck. And it looks nice as well in foil. Hero of Bladehold, 4 mana for a 3/4 human knight. It's got Battle Cry, so whenever it attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. And whenever it attacks, you create 2 1/1 white soldiers into play, tapped and attacking. Those soldiers will trigger Winota later on, but again, because they come in tapped and attacking, they won't trigger the turn they come in. Likewise, Hero of Bladehold's abilities, Battle Cry and cheating in the soldiers, won't trigger the turn she comes in because she's already attacking. However, if you attack with her on subsequent combats, you can start making those soldiers, and then on combats after that, you can start triggering Winota with those soldiers. So this is a bit slower than it seems at first, but it can still rack up a lot of damage, especially with the Battle Cry. Geist-Nodded Monk, somewhat similar to Pia and Kieran. When it comes in, you create 2 1/1 white spirits, which can be used to trigger Winota later on. But its power and toughness is also equal to the number of creatures you control. Bear in mind, you're often going to be controlling 10 or more creatures, so this is a huge human to cheat in, especially since it comes in attacking straight away. People don't expect this, bringing a random 10/10 human monk and also get 2 spirits for the next combat. It's a really powerful card. Resolute Blade Master, 5 mana for a 2/2 human soldier ally. When it ETBs, when it or another ally ETBs, creatures you control gain double strike until end of turn. The only other ally in this deck is Mirror Entity, so you're probably only going to trigger this once per game. But if you're already swinging in for like 20 damage with all your tokens, this can turn a strong combat into a 1-hit KO. Adriana, Captain of the Guard, 5 mana for a 4/4 human knight with melee, which is whenever this creature attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each opponent you attacked with a creature this combat, and it gives other creatures you control melee. So again, it's only a small boost to your creatures, but since you've got loads of creatures out, it really adds up. Knight Captain of Eos, a human knight, and when it comes in, you create 2 1/1 white soldiers, and you can sacrifice a soldier to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. You're rarely going to be bothered about preventing combat damage because you're going to be attacking a lot faster than your opponents are, but it's nice to have that as an option. It's good enough on its own just for the creating 2 1/1 soldier when it comes in. Captain of the Watch, another one of the best cards in this deck, 6 mana for a 3/3 human soldier with vigilance. Other soldiers you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance, and when she ETBs you create 3 1/1 soldiers. Again, they're not human soldiers, so you can use these to trigger Winota. You see what I mean now about like Winota cheats in humans, which then create non-human tokens, and then those non-human tokens cheat in other humans, which then create other non-human tokens, and you just absolutely snowball with these like insane amounts of creature tokens that you're putting onto the battlefield. Similarly, Lena Selfish Champion, 6 mana for a 3/3 human knight. When she ETBs, you create a 1/1 white soldier for each non-token creature you control, which is usually about between 4 and 6 soldiers, which is a lot. And you can sacrifice Lena to give creatures with power less than Lena's power indestructible until end of turn. This deck, obviously being a token deck, is very susceptible to board wipes. There are a lot of ways around it, which I'll get to soon, but Lena is one of those. As well as just creating loads of soldiers, which are very useful for triggering Winota, she can also protect those soldiers later on. So this is a really strong card. Avenger of Heliod. When it ETBs, create a number of 1/1 soldiers equal to your devotion to white, which again will usually be about 5 or 6. So this is very efficient token creation. Like I say, you want to be attacking with non-human creature tokens, cheating in humans like this, which create more non-human creature tokens, then attacking with those to create even more humans. Silverwing Squadron, 6 mana for a human knight with fire and vigilance. Its power and toughness are each equal to a number of creatures you control, and whenever it attacks you create a number of 2/2 white knights with vigilance equal to the number of opponents you have. To be honest, the game doesn't usually go on long enough once you have Silverwing Squadron out for the 2/2 white knights to really get created, or at least to be able to attack themselves. But just the fact that this is a human which will generally have a huge amount of power that you can cheat in with Winota, and that has evasion is good enough. Like you bring this in when you've got like 10 creatures or so, it's a hard to block human that can just do an absolute ton of damage on its own. And if the game goes on long enough, it creates non-human soldiers, tokens. Aura Touch Mage. So when Aura Touch Mage ETBs, you search your library for an aura that can enchant it. If Aura Touch Mage is still in play when it resolves, attach that aura to it. Otherwise, reveal the aura and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Now the only aura in this deck is Eldrazi Conscription. Just let that sink in for a second. Eldrazi Conscription gives enchanted creature +10/+10 and gives it trample and annihilate 2. So whenever the creature attacks, defending player sacrifices 2 permanents. So you attack with a 1/1 token, cheat in Aura Touch Mage, trigger, put Eldrazi Conscription onto the Aura Touch Mage. Suddenly you're attacking with a 13/13 trampler. Now I should point out, as with other effects like Odric, the Annihilator doesn't trigger if you cheat it out already attacking. However, it's still a 13/13 trampler, and if it attacks again, your opponent has to start sacrificing 2 permanents a turn. So this is absolutely disgusting. We've also got Angrath's Marauders, which is a 4/4 human pirate. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage instead. So this can finish games. This just finishes games. Like you, again, like I said before, if you're doing 20 damage to an opponent already, and then you cheat this in with one of your triggers, that's lethal damage in one combat. It is sickening. It is 7 mana, which is quite a lot, but obviously it doesn't matter if you're cheating it in with Winota. We've also got Cathar's Crusade. There's not really a special section for this, I just want to include it. Whenever a creature ETBs under your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Since you're often going to be bringing in like 7 or 8 creatures in per turn easily, this can power up your tokens so fast. This is a deadly card. So you want to be protecting Winota, because the deck is very heavily reliant on Winota. You need her out to be able to trigger her and get your humans out and attack with them. So she's going to draw a ton of hit. Basically everyone at the table is going to be trying to remove Winota most of the time. So there's a lot of ways in this deck to protect her. So Giver of Runes and Mother of Runes can protect her from spot removal for 1 turn. Mother of Runes is especially good because you can cheat her out with Winota's trigger. You can attack with Giver of Runes to trigger Winota, but you generally don't want to do that. You want to be holding these up to protect Winota if somebody goes to like Path to Exile her, or Sword her, or Bedevil her, or whatever. Dauntless Bodyguard does something similar. You can cheat it out with Winota. As it ETBs, you choose another creature you control, which is generally going to be Winota, and you can sacrifice Dauntless Bodyguard to give the chosen creature indestructible until end of turn. This isn't quite as good for avoiding spot removal, because a lot of spot removal is exile based or bounce based, but it's still pretty good for things like Bedevil, Hero's Downfall, and the occasional board wipe. So this is still worth playing, especially since you can cheat it out with Winota. Lightning Greaves gives Winota haste and shroud. It can also give any other attackers haste if you want to get in a bit faster, but generally you want to put this on Winota to protect her from spot removal. I did run Swiftfoot Boots for a bit, but it was a bit inefficient mana wise because this deck is so fast. You don't often want to be waiting that extra turn to be able to pay the mana cost to equip it, but Lightning Greaves is a good choice. Bolt Bend also helps to protect Winota from spot removal. It's for 4 mana instant. Change the target of target spell or ability with a single target, but it costs 3 less if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, which Winota has. So if you have Winota out, you should leave a red mana open. Someone goes to spot remove Winota, you play Bolt Bend, and change that target to one of their creatures. It's really nice. As I said, this deck is also quite susceptible to board wipes, so there's a bunch of ways to protect your board from board wipes. So you've got Unbreakable Formation, which gives your creatures indestructible until end of turn, and if you play it during your main phase, you put a +1/+1 counter on each of your creatures, and again Vigilance until end of turn. You are very rarely going to be using this in your main phase. You generally want to keep it up for board wipes, but you know, it's there if you want to get like an alpha strike in. Make a Stand does something similar. It gives all your stuff +1/+1 indestructible until end of turn. And Flawless Maneuver is one of the best cards in this deck. It's quite expensive, but if you can afford it, it's amazing. It's a 3 mana instant. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. But if you have Winota out, it costs nothing. So you can tap out, right? You've got Winota in a board out. your opponent thinks, right, I've got him now, I can board wipe. You just go, no, 0 mana, indestructible until end of turn. It is deadly. I would also recommend Boros Charm, which is 2 mana, which has the same effect. I think that's considerably better than Make a Stand or Unbreakable Formation. I just don't have a copy right now, but if you can get your hands on that, that's definitely a better alternative to one of the first two. But Flawless Maneuver is easily the best spell that gives you this effect. There's a couple of creatures that help protect you from board wipes as well. You've got Gerard Weatherlight Hero, which you can cheat out with Winota, and Luminous Broodmoth, which you can't cheat out, but it's still a good creature. Gerard Weatherlight Hero is a 3/3 with First Strike. When it dies, you exile him and return to the battlefield all artifacts and creatures that were put there from the battlefield this turn. So basically, as a board wipe, you just exile Gerard, get all your stuff back. Luminous Broodmoth is a 3/4 with flying, and whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. Obviously this isn't going to get your tokens back, but it will get back your non-token creatures, which will usually bring in more tokens. So these are really good to have out if your opponent plays a board wipe and you need to get your whole board back at once. Anax Harden in the Forge is also a good option. It's not in the deck list at the moment because I sort of hastily took it out just now when I realised it wasn't a human. But that's a good option if you want to give yourself even more insurance against board wipes. And if your opponent does successfully get a board wipe against you, you've got Angel of Glory's Rise, which is 7 mana for a 4/6 flying angel. When it ETBs, you exile all zombies, then return all humans from your graveyard to the battlefield. Obviously, a lot of these humans make non-human tokens on ETB, so it's a good way to just build your board back up if you get hit by a board wipe. There's a couple of board wipes of its own. You've got Cleansing Nova and Blasphemous Act. You are rarely going to be one of board wiping in this deck, but it's there if you need it. Like, you're rarely going to want to clear all creatures, but you've got the option if you need it later on. Cleansing Nova is also good for destroying all artifacts and enchantments. A little bit of spot removal as well. You've got Chaos Warp, Swords to Plowshares, and Return to Dust. There's not a lot of removal in this deck because it is extremely aggressive. You're often not going to be bothered about removing your opponent's stuff, but if they've got a Nevermore or an Imprison and the Moon out stopping your Winota, then Return to Dust or Chaos Warp are good for dealing with that. So it's good to have a little bit. How much removal you want to run is up to you. You can tailor this deck a little bit. You can take out the removal and make it even more aggressive if you want to, or you can add more removal to make it more sort of stable. My build obviously doesn't have a lot of removal. It's very aggressive, it's quite glass hammery. You can stabilise it if you want to by taking out some of the creatures and adding more removal, or you can make it even more aggressive by just not having any board wipes or removal at all. It's up to you. Personally, I like to have a bit of a balance, so I'm prepared for the rare times when my opponent can deal with Winota, but I don't think you want to lean too heavily into it, because this does want to be a very aggressive deck. And in aid of that, we've got a fair bit of ramp. We've got Wayfarer's Bauble, Sol Ring, Fellwire Stone, Boros Signet, Mind Stone, and Arcane Signet for ramp, as well as Solemn Simulacrum. So these are all good ways to just ramp a bit. This is a very low curve, but if somebody does manage to remove Winota, you want to be able to recast it. You don't want to just be stuck on 4 mana, so you need a bit of ramp. In terms of artifacts, you've also got Skull Clamp to get a bit of value off your 1/1s if you've got enough that you don't really need to swing in. If you just want to fill up your hand a bit, clamp up one of you guys and just get some cards. Okay, now on to the lands. There are 39 lands in this deck. In terms of mana fixing, you've got Battlefield Forge, Command Tower, Clifftop Retreat, and that's it. I'd also recommend other things like Sacred Foundry if you can get it. I just don't have one personally, but the more mana fix you can get for this, the better. I basically recommend any land that comes in untapped and can tap for either red or white. So any of those you can get, all very useful. Castle Ardenvale lets you create a 1/1 white human, which obviously won't trigger Winota, but it will trigger things like, for example, Cathar's Crusade or Gold Knight Commander. I very rarely use the ability on this, but it's nice for a niche situation if you need another ETB. Castle Embereth gives all your creatures +1/+0 until end of turn, which if you're swinging in with loads of creatures, that gives you a ton of extra damage if you just need that little bit extra to get in for lethal. Care Keep lets you create a 0/1 red kobold every turn. Well, not every turn, but any turn you have the mana, which can trigger Winota. Especially useful after a board wipe, you'll still have this out, and then you can start building up your board again slowly. Similar effects can be found in Mishra's Factory and Blinkmoth Nexus, which you can turn into non-human creatures until end of turn. Mishra's Factory becomes an assembly worker, Blinkmoth Nexus becomes a Blinkmoth, and it can give target Blinkmoth +1/+1 until end of turn. Useful with Mirror Entity, another Commander Kuro secret tech. No, but seriously, these are pretty cool, because they're non-human creatures that are very hard to remove. So yeah, these are nice. The rest of the deck is basics. You've got about 30 odd basics here, all in foil. Look at that bling, look at it, it's beautiful. As I say, you'll want as much mana fixing as you can without playing tap lands. I don't think tap lands are very good in this deck because it's an extremely fast, aggressive deck and it's only 2 colours, so you don't need to worry that much about mana fixing anywhere. Any non-basics you can get that come in untapped and tap for either colour are great, but basics are also fine as long as you have the right proportion of red to white. Same as any deck, really. You don't need me to tell you that shotguns are good in EDH, you already know it. Okay, and that's the deck. As I said, this is an extremely fast, aggressive deck. It's really powerful. Does fall over very easily if you don't balance it right. See, that's the importance of having a balanced deck. Right, okay. But seriously, this is a really powerful, really fast deck. It's a ton of fun to play. I love Winota as a character. She looks badass. That whole panda look is so cool. I love this deck. It is very strong, very powerful. You can tune it a little bit to be more aggressive or more controlling if you want to. I think this is quite a balanced build. This consistently wins decks for me in my relatively casual meta, and it's also won a couple of games that I've had CEDH decks in. Anyway, this is a really strong deck. It's a lot of fun to play. I think you'll love playing it if you want to build something like this. And if you've got any suggestions for this deck, I'm always open to new ideas. I'm always open to making my deck stronger. So let me know in the comments. And if you want to see even more videos like this, where my decks fall over and I just ramble on for 20 minutes about these crazy decks that I build, subscribe to my channel and let me know what you think of this video, because feedback is always useful to me. And lastly, I just want to say once again, Secret Lair the Walking Dead can fuck right off. Now thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Goodbye.